Now we'll be moving to another book, but this time one of those amazing black books from the Horus Heresy. Excuse me. And this one is Crusade. And it's about the Night Lords. And about the Night Lords in Tramas. It's a quite good one. So, to get us the idea, Horus sent Curse to Tramas. And a lot of interesting stuff happens. So let us begin. Long had the worlds that surrounded now dead Nostramo suffered under the rule of the Night Hunter. His stringent and unforgiving code of law had enforced a dreary life of suffering and toil upon those who served him, with any infraction, no matter how insignificant, punished by maiming or death. While it had maintained a brutal form of order, it had done so by means of fear so ingrained that it had begun to eat away at the souls of those who dwelt under its burden, the suppressed sins of his people, a threat overlooked by their old masters. With the Night Hunter's absence during the final years of the Great Crusade, this threat would come to the fore, with many of the worlds of that far sector overthrowing the tyrannical regimes forced upon them by the Night Lords, and reverting to the archaic ways of their past. Corrupt syndicates and brutal gangs took control of cities and worlds, indulging in all that Konrad Curze had forbidden, and bringing a more chaotic terror to the weak that dwelt on those benighted worlds. The syndicates who ruled these worlds thought the return of Curze meant new profits, and they stood ready to supply Horus's rebellion. But to Konrad, they were an insult to all he had ever sought to achieve, and he put their worlds to the torch. This would set the pattern for Konrad Curze's return to his adopted home, with even those worlds that had remained largely true to his draconian law suffering a blight of gruesome punishment to ensure their loyalty. While the other traitor legions busied themselves with the initial assaults on the warp channels leading to distant Terra and Paramar and Karadok, now vast battlefields for the warlords fighting over the Imperium's corpses, the Night Lords set about a private war. For the return of the Night Hunter was far more than the prosecution of the War Master's conquest, but also a piece of a vision that the Night Hunter had long dreaded. The next step on a path that had begun when Horus raised his banner at Ishvan. In the descent of Nostramo and his neighbors into madness and debauchery, and the setting of brother against brother, saw the beginnings of his own demise, and the eternal damnation of his legion. It was a fate he still fought to deny, but his methods were ever more led by desperation before cunning, and he loosened the warriors of his legion to eradicate all signs of that possibility, to wipe clean the stain of perfidy with blood, and perhaps turn the course of fate itself. Led by Nakrid Tol, a late generation recruit from Nostramo, the gutter scum of the Legion wanted to keep Curze occupied with his visions and regrets so that they could plunder and kill to their heart's content. Opposed to him stood both Terrans and Nostramans, veterans and new recruits who were committed to Horus's rebellion, but who wanted the Legion's action to mean something. Their totem was Sevatar. Though seen by history as the battlefield that would pit the Night Lords against the Dark Angel, Tramas also would be the field upon which another battle would be fought. A battle for the soul of Konrad Curze himself, lost among the grand battles and terrible slaughters that formed the backdrop of the assault on the Tramas sector. The Night Lords underwent their own quiet rebellion. The two faces of the Legion fought a sullen fratricidal struggle for control of the Legion and its Primarch. There were those that yearned for the glory days, when the Night Lords stood among the legends of the Imperium, a military force to be reckoned with, and those who sought only the bloody mandate to pillage and kill in the wild stars at the edge of Imperium space. Horus had offered them freedom in his rebellion, and therein lay the heart of their tragedy. For in freedom they have found only despair, both in the decline of their Primarch and in the decline of their legion. This would be no war in the open between brothers, but a brutal struggle in the shadows, with honor-due kills, battlefield incidents, and the disgrace of rival officers serving as the main weapons. Though the filth of the Legion enjoyed great success at first, in the end it was the savagery of Tol and his ilk that brought about their own doom. Despite the apparent failures of the Night Hunter's plans, it will be his actions that finally tipped the balance of power within the Legion to those of his sons that sought to free him from his visions. For in giving the more headstrong portions of his Legion their freedom, he had allowed them to overextend their forces and commit themselves to a series of battles that were now beyond their means to finish. They were caught in the trap of their own hubris. In the final months of the Tramas campaign, many of those that bore the Cross of Bones were cut down. Nakrid Tol falling at Tramas, Veiduk the Maimed at Shello, and Malitos and so Herrick at the hands of Sevatar and his... this one's a hard one. At the hands of Sevatar and his Atramentar. With their deaths, the more loyal sons of Curse finally took control of the Legion, with Sevatar assembling an inner council, the Cryoptera of the Night Lords, filled with warriors he counted as loyal to his cause and the Legion's survival. This new council would lead while the Primarch languished at the edge of death, setting a more pragmatic course than those that had taken the reins for the majority of the Tramas campaign. Sevatar and the new Cryoptera intended to reunite the Legion, to cleanse them and make them proud conquerors once more. But then, the Lion and his sons, a force that could not be overcome, but that alone was not enough to end the 8th Legion. No, their father saw to that, stirring from his torpor and launching a futile assault on the Dark Angels. And so, died the most loyal sons of the 8th. Those who followed Curse into the Lion's jaw, leaving the rest to flee, never again to be a true Legion. I have a soft spot for the Night Lords. I really like their whole team and way of fighting of terror. That's why I like also the Alpha Legion. But it is quite a tragic fate. But alas, what can you do? Really, what can you do?